Canada has just they asked us to subject our High Commissioner to a police inquiry, you can say, and we chose to withdraw the High Commissioner and diplomats. Now, look at it. They seem to have a problem if Indian diplomats are even trying to make efforts to find out what is happening in Canada on matters which directly pertain to their welfare and security. But look what happens in India. Canadian diplomats have no problem going around collecting information on our military, on our police, profiling people, targeting people to be stopped in Canada. So apparently the license that they give themselves is totally different from the kind of restrictions that they impose on diplomats in Canada. Or even take the press. I'm at a press event. Now, when we tell them, saying, look, you have people openly threatening leaders of India, diplomats of India. Sometimes the threat is not just verbal, it's physical. So their answer is freedom of speech. Okay? Now, when Indian journalists make social media comments, if you threaten the Indian High Commissioner, he is supposed to accept it as freedom of speech. But if an Indian journalist says the Canadian High Commissioner walked out of South Block looking very grumpy, it is apparently foreign interference. Now, how, look at the, this is not even, double standards is a very mild word for it. So, look, there is this thing that we will do it differently at home, we will do it differently abroad, we will do it our way, but that doesn't apply to you. So I think these are the larger, I would say, adjustments which have to happen in this changing world. We reached an agreement on patrolling, and with that, the disengagement, we have gone back to where the situation was in 2020, and we can say with that the disengagement process with China, you can say, has been completed. So, so far, I would say that's as much as I can share with you. I'm sure in due course, iske details वगैरह निकलेंगे.
So, will now India be able to patrol in the areas of Galwan, Depsang?
No, you see, there are areas which, for various reasons, after 2020, because they had blocked us, so we had blocked them. So दो तरफा था, Bob. So what has happened is we have reached an understanding which will allow the patrolling. For example, you spoke about Depsang. That's not the only place. There are other places also. So I think the understanding, to my knowledge, is that we will be able to do the patrolling which we were doing in 2020.
अब ग्लोबली बहुत सारे पॉलिसी एलिट्स ये कहने लग गए हैं कि एक्चुअली मोदी लेड इंडिया के लिए एक बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है नए ग्लोबल ऑर्डर को शेप करने की. उस रोल को आप लोग कितना अंडरस्टेटेड ढंग से प्ले कर रहे हैं या कितना फ्रंट फुट पर खेलने वाले हैं?
देखिए, हम दोनों कर रहे हैं क्योंकि कभी कभी समय, अवसर, मौका ऐसा होता है, यू हैव टू बी फ्रंट फुट. जैसे हमें लगा कि ग्लोबल साउथ की आवाज़ जो है बिल्कुल दब गई. सो लीडिंग इनटू G20, हमें लगा वी हैव टू गेट द ग्लोबल साउथ टुगेदर, वी हैव टू गेट बैक टू देयर कंसर्न्स विच हैड गॉट sidelined. That's occasion where you are, as you say, on front foot. But there are occasions where you have to be more deft. अब जैसे अब प्रधानमंत्री जी, he went to Russia, he met President Putin, then he went to Kiev. Okay, so now certain things, अब इसको आप पब्लिक में ब्रॉडकास्ट, मैं तो आपको तो नहीं बताऊंगा what is happening. So some things you have to do from little bit more discreetly, deftly. But I would say this, just look over the last 10 years. Right now, there is a war going on in Ukraine. How many countries, how many prime ministers, how many leaders have the ability to go to Moscow, talk frankly, go to Kiev, talk frankly, go back to Moscow and go back to Kiev? Similarly, there's another war going on in the Middle East. Now, not many people know that even in the last year, the number of times where actually we've had conversations with Iran and conversation with Israel, that's also there. मैं पूरे वेस्ट की मैं बात तो करूंगा क्योंकि सिविलाइजेशनली आप कह सकते हैं कल्चरली वो जुड़े हुए हैं, बट मैं ये नहीं कहूँगा कि ऑल ऑफ देम आर ऑन द सेम पेज या सब लोगों को वो समझ नहीं है. इनफैक्ट आपने अमेरिका का जिक्र किया, मैं तो उल्टा कहूँगा कि अमेरिका में वो समझ है. इसीलिए अगर आप ये क्वाड जो 2017 में जो बनी थी क्वाड, आप ये क्वाड देखिए, तब तक अमेरिका कहता था कि अगर आप ट्रीटी अलाइन नहीं हैं तो मैं आपके साथ बियॉन्ड अ पॉइंट आई एम नॉट प्रिपेयर टू वर्क विथ यू, उसकी लिमिटेशंस होंगी. नाउ they've evolved, they have changed. टुडे आप पिछले 7 साल में देखेंगे हाउ मच क्वाड हैज एक्चुअली ग्रोन. सो आई वुड से दिस, when I go to Europe, when I go to definitely US, North America, there are countries which have understood this. There are countries today who say there is a value to working with India. There are countries who say, okay, this is our interest, this is India's interest, let us find a meeting point. Now, the unfortunate thing is that didn't get through in Canada, or maybe the political compulsions overtook that. I mean, as I said, I can only speculate on the reason. So I would not say, पूरे वेस्ट को समझ नहीं है कि जो उनकी ऑर्डर जो है वो चल नहीं पाएगी हमारे बिना. You see, we will all come to understandings. We will, world is a very practical place. तो वो समझते हैं, बहुत लोग एडजस्ट भी करते हैं, कोई कम करते हैं, कोई ज़्यादा करते हैं, कोई कुछ सब्जेक्ट में करते हैं, दूसरे में नहीं करते. So all of that will happen. But it is just in this spectrum, मैं कहूँगा Canada is way behind.
जब मैंने पहली बार आपका इंटरव्यू किया था तो मैंने कहा हमारी पूरी बातचीत हो गई, पाकिस्तान का नाम ही नहीं लिया.
चलिए, अच्छा था ना?
नहीं, लेकिन अब मैं इसलिए ले रहा हूं क्योंकि आप जाके आए हैं और स्पेकुलेशन अगेन हमारा काम है करना कि नवाज शरीफ फिर बुलाएंगे प्राइम मिनिस्टर को.
सॉरी, स्पेकुलेशन क्या?
नवाज शरीफ फिर बुलाएंगे प्राइम मिनिस्टर को.
मैं उनसे तो नहीं मिला था पर और मैं गया था वहाँ SCO की मीटिंग के लिए, और जैसे मैंने पहले से बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से कहा था, आई एम गोइंग देयर फॉर अ SCO मीटिंग, आई एम अ गुड SCO मेंबर, आई विल बी वेरी सपोर्टिव, एंड वी वर, इट वाज अ पाकिस्तानी प्रेसिडेंसी ऑफ SCO, वी वर वेरी सपोर्टिव ऑफ इट. ऑल ऑफ अस हैड एन इंटरेस्ट कि SCO की प्रोसीडिंग जो है बहुत स्मूथली चले. तो गए वहाँ, मिले सबसे, हाथ मिलाया, had a good meeting, और आ गए वापस.
चलिए ठीक है.
Today there was a threat issued on the Air India by the terrorist group and the Canadian Mr. Pannu or whatever he's called. What is our take on that, and what is the government's plan? Because we see a lot of issues with Canada, and this morning this guy has typically asked all people to refrain from flying Air India. So I see, what is your take on that, sir?
We have seen threats to our airlines, we have seen threats to our parliament, we have seen threats to our diplomats, we have seen threats to our High Commission, to our leaders. And that is a source of concern to us, because if these threats, because they are cleverly worded, are then said, they are okay with freedom of speech, I think there are very serious issues. And the point which we make to the country concerned, let us reverse roles. Suppose you were at the receiving end of this threat. Suppose it was your airline, your leaders, your diplomats, your parliament. Would you take it as lightly as that? So, no, you don't get a second chance. I get to answer. So, look, my point is, these are exactly the kind of problems with which we started this conversation. That there are countries which feel that, your concerns don't matter, that's okay, that's part of our politics. But if the slightest thing happens to them, even if it is legitimate, they have they start jumping up and down. So, as I said, when I see today you're talking of something as egregious as a threat to the airline, I'm talking of something as simple as social. I mean, if a government can list out, 20, 25 Indian journalists saying these journalists are today interfering in my country because they have made social media posts. And this is the same government which then tells you, a threat to airlines is part of freedom of speech. I think you ask yourself, whose credibility is taking a hit?